Well, hello. Let's talk quiet quitting, my friends. I'm pretty sure you have heard the term at least once. Let me explain you what quiet quitting is all about, how it looks differently from employees and companies' shoes, and trust me, it looks very different, and what Jay-Z's are so mad about to drive this trend. Quiet quitting is to do a minimum requirement for your job and put in no effort, time, energy, or enthusiasm than it's absolutely necessary.
I am not going to myself over a job that doesn't care about me as a human being.
You're not quite going above and beyond like you used to. Oh yeah, I'm quiet quitting. What is that? Essentially, I'm burnt out, so I'm just doing the bare minimum at work.
So it means that in quiet quitting, the worker does not actually leave their job. Quiet quitting became a huge thing in recent years, mostly thanks for TikTok. And now it's a huge trend in US and worldwide as well. A 2022 Gallup survey suggests that at least half of the US workers are quiet quitters. There are actually many questions regarding these numbers, and there are a lot of people who don't think that quiet quitting is a new trend, but just a new fancy name of a work dissatisfaction. Nevertheless, it's a thing, and let's break it down. A few months ago, actually, Harvard Business Review mentioned that quiet quitters continue to fulfill their primary responsibilities, but they're less willing to engage in activities known as citizenship behaviors. No more staying late, showing up early, or attending non-mandatory meetings. As an example of that, they don't interact with anything related to work outside of working hours, they don't speak up in meetings, they don't volunteer for any tasks. They mentioned a really cool thing that is called citizenship behaviors. There are 5 known citizenship behaviors that apparently quiet quitters are avoiding. The first one is altruism. It's a pretty intuitive one. It's basically helping a colleague with a task or problem. The second one is courtesy. It's behaviors that prevent work-related conflicts with others. The third one is conscientiousness. Conscientiousness is when basically you accept and follow the rules and procedures within the organization. Number 4 is civic virtue. It means attending meetings and kind of keep up with what's happening with your organization in general. And the last one is sportsmanship. It's basically when we tolerate less than ideal circumstances within the organization without complaining or blowing the problem out of proportion. All these 5 magical things quiet quitters refuse to do, as well as anything else that is absolutely necessary to keep the job. By the way, I won't even start about the fact that some of the citizenship behaviors are considered more feminine and some more masculine. And it's often expected from women to show the behaviors focused on the concern of others, like altruism or courtesy. But that's a topic for a separate video, so let's move on. The research from Gallup actually segments all the workers, all the employees into 3 categories: engaged, not engaged, and actively disengaged. And quiet quitters are in this middle not engaged spot. And don't confuse them with actively disengaged people, because quiet quitters, they don't fight with the things that they don't like. They don't quit the job because they are dissatisfied. They are in this middle segment, let's say radical parts of this middle not engaged segment. I'm sure there will be much more research on that in the future, but from what we're having now, it looks like quiet quitting is bad for companies, for managers, and for employees as well. Meaning that sometimes low engagement is not only bad for our companies or our managers, but for ourselves as well. If something is not going well, quiet quitter won't talk to the manager or try to improve it, because the whole point is actually to avoid talking as much as possible. Of course, there are a lot of companies with a toxic corporate culture where you feel that you have to go above and beyond to the extent that you actually harm your personal work-life balance. At the same time, it's possible to participate in some citizenship behaviors, of course limiting the activity, that would get you more energized and increase your sense of fulfillment from your work. Now, here's the trick. The quiet quitting, this whole thing, looks very, very different if you look at it from employer's perspective or employee's perspective. Now, let's look at it from employee's perspective. And here's the point. People feel that company does not care about them, but only cares about their labor. And it's fully understandable. There are many companies with a toxic corporate culture in endless variations. managers that doesn't care if you're sick until you're capable of doing the job, and anything personal that happens in your life is basically punished. Or the cultures where you have to love your job, you have to smile and be grateful, although you don't get anything in return for that extra effort. Now we're saying company this, company that, but what do we mean when we actually say company? People who work there, plus all the established processes and procedures in the company, plus perception of the brand, etc., etc. The point is, when you're an employee, you usually have a manager that kind of represents the company for you. Your manager represents the rules of the game here. All these rules of the game are created by the management of the company, who, trust me, are unlikely to be Gen Zs. But your manager is still a person, and he or she can care about you despite the toxic corporate culture or practices. But the statistics of quiet quitting evidence that it doesn't happen that often. Now, we're different and we want different things from our work, right? Some people like to get highly engaged in their work. Some don't. And some even open their own companies. One people value career development, another people flexible schedule, another just need a higher paycheck. People are different, and even one person may want different things in different stages of their lives. So before I move to any kind of analysis on quiet quitting, I want to say, I believe that it is simply counterproductive to blame people for not being engaged. If you're millennial like me, or if you're even older, there is a chance that you look at all this quiet quitting mess and thinking, what the heck? We're working so hard for so many years without complaining, and all these people are just soft and lazy. They just need to get over it, buckle up, and finally start properly working. It's an easy way to look at quiet quitting, and in my humble opinion, incorrect one. I am a manager, and if I notice people who are disengaged in my team, the first thing I will do is look for reasons why. Because quiet quitting is a symptom, not the root cause. Now, let me share with you the reasons why people are losing their engagement, especially younger people, and as a consequence, they embrace quiet quitting. And the first one is, quiet quitting can be a response to a burnout. I mean, imagine if you're overworking, if you're stressed out, if you feel that no one actually cares about you as a person at work. Quiet quitting can be a response to that. You may not want to quit your job, or maybe you cannot simply afford quitting your job, but you are so burned out that you have to, let's say, establish your boundaries to such a strict manner that it leads to what we call quiet quitting. Another reason why people do quiet quitting is basically when they don't understand how doing all this extra effort and citizenship behaviors would actually benefit them. They put all this extra effort, but they don't know how would it actually benefit their life or their career. Can we recall working extra hours, putting a lot of effort into our work, and expecting promotion and did not getting a promotion in the end? Or for example, when in the company the rules of the game are so blurry and hypocritical, then you don't understand if this effort that you put would actually pay off or not. You don't understand how all this connected to your career prospects. You don't see if you have a learning and growing opportunities in your role. There is no one at work who encourages your development. I can easily imagine how in an environment like that, a person could say, why bother? Why being proactive and engaged if it doesn't get me anything in return? And the third reason why people embrace quiet quitting is misalignment between expectations of organization and person from the work that you do. When we work, we want to know what is expected from us at work. And if these things does not match, or for example, on paper, your company wants one thing from you, but in reality, you see that there are other things that are expected, it can lead to a lower engagement. And as a potential response, quiet quitting. Also, don't get me wrong, all of these things can be partially present in our working reality. For example, many of us experienced that during pandemic, we had what is called a job creep, the gradual extension of our core duties over time. And in general, it's natural, but the problem is when it gets overboard. Finally, behind all these reasons why people are becoming quiet quitters, I see one of the biggest reasons, in my opinion, that causes it. And I would try to generalize and call it unprofessional management. I even saw in a few places where it has been called quiet firing, a management approach in which managers forego the best best practices of great management, such as providing frequent feedback, coaching development, and accountability, and instead they do the opposite. So certain employees look elsewhere to find a new opportunity. So many problems are happening because managers on different levels in the organization sometimes don't really understand what manager's job is. They don't communicate, don't give feedback, don't support, don't develop, because being manager is not just telling the other guy what to do and check when it's done. I personally saw and observed many unprofessional managers in my life, and I'm a huge believer in properly preparing managers to a managerial role, including educating and training. So here I would say, if you're a manager and you have a not engaged people in your team, the one who are showing this quiet quitting behavior, I would strongly suggest not to think about it as these damn Jay-Z's are just lazy, but look at the root causes of that. I suggested you 3 potential root causes. You can at least analyze which one you think is more applicable for your employee. On the other hand, if you think of yourself as a quiet quitter, I think it's also helpful for you to understand why exactly you're doing this, because I'm pretty sure you will change a job at some point, and this would be a really good reflection on what do you want to avoid in your next company. Also, there are so many things that managers can do to ensure that people in their team are staying motivated and engaged. That's a pretty big and actually really interesting topic, but I'm trying to look at what type of content is doing well on the channel, so I will look if this video is going well and maybe we'll record part 2. Either way, I hope I helped you understand the trend/phenomenon a little bit better and reflect on your personal engagement level in your work. Bye!